Hi, I'm Captain Grant Coppin with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
This week we've had a lot of weather changes. We've had north wind, south wind, all over the place. Strong wind, no wind. Now I'm putting these in my report today because these reefs have had fish on them. You can't really fish them on a windy day, but on our calmer days, get out here in the bay, fish these reefs, because this is where you're going to catch a lot of the good fish right along here. Get upwind of the reef, throw live shrimp up against them. That's what we've been catching most of our fish on. Getting good boxes of redfish, trout, flounder, sheephead, all through here, either on a popping cork or just free lined up onto the reef. Also throwing some cut bait onto the reef, catching good redfish. Anything from cut skipjack, cut menhaden, cut mullet, and also throwing live finger mullet onto those reefs just free lined is also working pretty well for the redfish. Back here a little further back in the bay, this set of reefs almost always has fish on it, but just like those that were out in the middle of the bay, these are a little bit more protected, though it tends to be a little murkier and muddier in here. Don't let that bother you, because this little conglomerate of reefs has really got some good fish on it. Even though the water's a little murked up, I kind of like that in a way. You can get upwind of these reefs and fish these little pockets, and then you've got a lot of targets to hit in here as you come into these reefs. You can use your trolling motor and go from reef to reef to reef and do reef hopping, as opposed to baffing. You do rock hopping. These little oyster reefs have a lot of fish on them. Been catching just mixed bags of drum, reds, sheep's head, a few trout scattered, and throwing a little bit of cut bait on them, and doing pretty good. Up here in the north end of the bay, this is a good set of reefs to fish on a north wind, and we do have an approaching cold front coming, and each time a cold front blows, you can come in here and fish this section of reefs and catch good fish, mixed bags of drum, reds, a few scattered trout, and maybe an occasional flounder. Just get upwind of the reef, get into some of this protected water, put the trolling motor down and work reef to reef to reef. Some of them are a little bit further apart and you can use your big engine, but the more you use your trolling motor, the better it's going to be. Every time you start that big engine, those fish can hear you. Even if let's say you're on this reef and you want to go from that reef to this reef, those two reefs might only be 100 yards apart. It might take you 5 extra minutes to go from one reef to the next. Don't let that bother you, because 5 minutes is worth putting your trolling motor down, taking the extra 5 minutes to go from one reef to the other, and you'll catch a lot more fish. Coming back here into Oso, I've been putting a lot of reefs in my reports lately, but that's just because a lot of these fish are holding on these shell pads. You come back in here, these little set of reefs are good. You can wade fish these. It's not too mushy in here. A lot of places in Oso are pretty mushy, but this place is all about 1.5 feet, 2 foot of water. When you come over to this shoreline, this is a good shoreline to fish right here. Get up tight to the shore. The tides have been a little bit high, not as high as when we had the storm, but there's still good fish on this shoreline, catching good flounder, bouncing soft plastics on the bottom, also catching some good redfish. You shallow guys and kayakers can get all the way back up in here along Ocean Drive. If there's water going through this little bridge here, you're going to see a lot of fish coming in here, because the bait can go through here. So the fish are going to be ready for that bait, whether it's blowing out of the north or blowing out of the south, one way or the other. Those fish will pack up on the mouth of this drain, both north and south. Over here around Flato Cut, we've been catching some good fish. As you come into the cut right here, there's some good reds holding on this side, and both the north and south end, depending on which direction the wind's blowing, will dictate which side you want to anchor up on. If it's blowing out of the north, anchor on the north side. If it's blowing out of the south, anchor on the south side. Because whether it's blowing north or south, as the water comes off that flat, these fish are going to want to sit at the mouth of those drains. Now, as you come further back into Flato, this big open area, it's got a ton of black drum in it. And of course, a lot of guys come in here, a lot of us guides, we like to come in here and catch these drum because it's low-hanging fruit and it's easy to do. Put the trolling motor down, put a free line shrimp, break the tail off, and just throw that out there in the school of drum. You'll catch lots of good fish. Along this north shore, we've been able to sight fish, catch a lot of good reds, and then you come back into this canal too. There's been some good reds on both sides, the north and south end. Looking at those fish tailing, just throwing either a gold spoon or just a jig with a piece of gulp on it.
I'm Captain Grant Coppin. Thanks for watching.